Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to light our little flame now. It burns through predictable chemical and physical reactions known to science, but that's not all. It also burns with the heat of our pure intention. Let us make of it an invitation to that one Spirit whose life is our life. Let us invest it with all the sincerity we can muster. Let's make it mean something to us. And let it remind us that it is possible to catch a glimpse of the real through the curtain of the everyday. Let it remind us of why we have come, and let it shine as a symbol that we are together in honesty, in trust, and affection. So may the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to help and not to harm, to bless and not to curse, and to serve in the spirit of freedom. So are we gathered? Are we ready? Let's sing number 33 in the purple book. Somebody told me earlier today they hoped today was bright and happy and full of joy, and that's a good way to start. Now I'm going to read you something now from a voice that will be familiar to many of us. There was a time back in the 1960s when, of course, not all of you remember the 1960s, but every bookshelf, usually made of bricks and boards, had got copies of the Prophet, Khalil Gibran. Do you remember that? Now, Gibran was a Lebanese mystic and poet, Maronite Christian family, who came to America with his mother and wound up becoming an inspirational source for basically for a whole generation. The problem he had was that he was heavily into drink, died young, and he's another one of those paradoxes. We just don't know much more about what motivated him. But he wrote about some things very beautifully, and the context was a prophet returning to his home after 12 years in exile. And I'm going to read what Gibran says about love. Then said Al-Mitra, speak to us of love. And he raised his head and he looked upon the people, and there fell a stillness upon them. And with a great voice he said, when love beckons to you, follow him. Though his ways are hard and steep, and when his wings enfold you, yield to him. Though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you. And when he speaks to you, believe in him, though his voice may shatter your dreams as the north wind lays waste the garden. For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so he is for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. All these things shall love do unto you, that you may know the secrets of your heart, and in that knowledge become a fragment of life's heart. But if in your fear you would seek only love's peace and love's pleasure, then it is better for you that you cover your nakedness and pass out of love's threshing floor into the seasonless world where you shall laugh, but not all of your laughter, and weep, but not all of your tears. Love gives naught but itself, and takes naught but from itself. Love possesses not, nor would it be possessed. For love is sufficient unto love. Love has no other desire but to fulfill itself. But if you love and must needs have desires, let these be your desires: to melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night, to know the pain of too much tenderness, to be wounded by your own understanding of love, and to bleed willingly and joyfully, to wake at dawn with a winged heart and give thanks for another day of loving, to rest at the noon hour and meditate love's ecstasy, to return home at eventide with gratitude, and then to sleep with a prayer for the beloved in your heart and a song of praise upon your lips. So Gibran didn't mess around when it came to these topics that some of us may pass off as easily as a song heard on the radio.
You may have heard this song on the radio, I don't know. I learned it many years ago. It's written by a lady called Malvina Reynolds, who didn't start her musical career until she was in her mid-60s. Love is something if you give it away. Give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Love is like a magic penny, hold it too tight, you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, you'll have so many, they'll roll all over the floor. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Now let's go dancing till the break of day. If there's a piper, well, we can pay. 'Cause love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Now, love is like a magic penny, hold it too tight, you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, you'll have so many, they'll roll all over the floor. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Yes, you end up having more. Musicians among you will notice that I changed key halfway through.
Well done.
By mistake. But I found my way back.
I think I'll change key as well now. Thank you. Let's all now just yield to the silence. Let's all drop our defenses and our cynicism and our unwillingness to believe that something might touch us here this morning. Let us find the levers of our inner lives and ease them open just enough so that the potential blessing of our efforts does not slip past us. And let us put aside all those concerns that wake us early and trouble us late. Let us know with the wisdom of our years how concerns and fears and obsessions have troubled us in the past and how they have now gone by barely to be remembered. If we're tired, let us receive rest in this moment. If we're sad, let us find that comfort that dries our eyes. If we're excited, eager, restless, Let us shelve the furious energy of those thoughts just now, just for this little while. Because we're doing more than merely waiting in the silence that follows. We're also reaching out with tender gestures of trust, knowing that if we do manage to seek the invisible will find us. So now, let us go gently once again to that place where the fading tones of our bell lead us into the good silence. One Spirit, known as Holy, true God of our true hearts, reach us through our fears and our wants and our distractions. Show us that we really are blessed. So be it. Inshallah. Shalom. Amen. I didn't know Christine was coming today, but I hoped. And so I picked hymn number 133 in the Green Book, which I know is one of her favorites, and mine as well. How can I keep from singing?
Oh,
The pandemic had big effects on all of us. We're still counting the cost. We hear every day how things are subtly, or maybe not so subtly, different. Now the pandemic has flapped its ugly wings past us a bit. And among the many results of the pandemic, the lockdowns in particular, has been an increase in, drum roll, divorce. Yes, divorces. Have you seen that? I guess it's logical. You spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days in a row with somebody, differences are bound to emerge. Maybe being romantic requires a bit of separation. What do you think? I mean, your home address isn't necessarily Love Island. But now I'm going to ask you a personal question. I hope you're sitting down. Have you ever fallen in love? No? I don't see a lot of people saying, why, yes, I have. I see a lot of people being sort of discreet about it. Okay, I have. And there's something about it which is rather different. It's been a major player in Western history, probably world history, I wouldn't know, since around the 12th century. That's the 1100s. One of the earliest of our formative myths is that of Tristan and Isolde. You know the story? Tristan falls in love with a woman he's supposed to be guarding and looking out for, who is the betrothed of the King of Ireland, and great tragedies happen. But there's this tale of a romantic love, of the love that two people feel for each other, transcending everything else. Nothing else becomes important. Wealth, health, even reputation. And around the end of medieval times, the idea of this redeeming quality began to make an appearance. And you know yourself, you talk to someone who's a kid, a young person, who's in love, there's absolutely no way of reasoning with them, because reason is thrown out the window. And you can say, okay, it's oxytocin or something, endorphins, something has messed up their brains. That doesn't matter. It seems when you're in love that that's the only thing that does matter, that it can conquer death, that it is the strongest thing of all. And this romantic streak has stayed with us throughout history. So these feelings of love have toppled governments, created wars. They are the source of huge amounts of money in the mass media. And it's now so commonplace that we never would have thought of it as strange at all. But there are things about it which we probably all, as grown-ups now and being quite past all those temptations of youth, to understand. Now think about it. Think about times that you've been in love. Roll things back to that time when you're in love. There's a sense of soul inflation. Vows get spoken in high-blown terms. Foolish risks are taken. Hairy-chested macho men go around like cavalier poets, smelling perfume from the hankies of their darlings. Women climb out of second-story windows. There's a sense of heightened consciousness. Lovers are alive to nuance. Every word has 100 meanings. Every letter has got tons of postscript between the lines. People go a little bit mad. They have, and note the verb here in this sentence, fallen in love. And it's always the same, whether you're gay or straight or another one of those LGBTQWERTYs or whatever. You fall in love and this happens to you. Of all the writing on the subject, the ideas that make the most sense to me are those of the great psychoanalyst C.G. Jung. And Jung realized that not only was this falling in love phenomenon universal, but it was entirely predictable. He realized that what is happening when we fall in love is an apparent sense of completion of ourselves. That is to say, something that's missing in us being fulfilled in someone else. And that happens through what he called projection. So whatever it is in yourself that you might feel unconsciously is missing, you bestow upon the object of your love. It's often the case that people then fall out of love just as quickly as they fall into it. Because it doesn't take long to realize that those projections, those things that you want the other person to have their origin in yourself. And a few days of disappointment with the failure of one's projections leaves a cold heart, and you hear things like, I never knew what you were really like. That's the lament of people who only days before have been in a state of mutual rapture. In a real sense, each one of the people was in love with him or herself. Nobody else can know how to be you but you. Falling in love, as many of us sadly come to realize, is a different thing from loving. I'm thinking that we may be getting to a point in time where we need a new verb or a new noun or something. The magic that tends to disappear in a relationship actually can find another form of expression. When we're left with the realization that falling in love is less than magical, we might find ourselves becoming cynical about men or women, or even cynical about love itself. This can be useful if it makes us more discriminating in our own sense of what really does have meaning. But how many of us have never, this is a rhetorical question, do not answer unless you feel like it. Anybody here never been disappointed in love? I have. And I think that falling in love carries not just the potential for, but the inevitability of disappointment. But that's all the bad news. Now here's the good news. The first of these is what Robert Johnson, who's a disciple of C.G. Jung, calls stirring the oatmeal love. And I thought about that this morning when I was indeed stirring my porridge oats. It may be that we married a god or a goddess only to find that they are actually only human. We may have begun a partnership in rapture and found tedium or depression, but this is where the real work begins, and so is where the real opportunity begins. The soul, unlike the limited ego, thrives on disappointment. It loves hardship. What seems to be easy, the melding together of the opposites, turns out to be difficult, but it also turns out to be real. The great Indian teacher Meher Baba once compared the long, slow process of the soul's growth to cleaning a pot. And just imagine a big old cooking pot used for rice or stew or whatever in India. One cleaner comes along, he promises to wash it and clean it in a single day. Another says it's going to take 40 days to clean this pot. The pot cleaned by the first one will look clean enough, but beyond the eye's scope, the surface of the metal is still pitted and therefore liable to become dirty again. But the second cleaner takes long, slow care with the surface, leveling invisible places for dirt and grease to lodge. And so your pot, when you get it back, is really clean. But this is not a sermon about cooking. This is a sermon about the soul, because the soul is like that. A purist who needs the thorough experience of a lifetime's relating to begin to redress the alienation imbalance that all of us have, that all of us suffer from, that we're all born with. It may take a whole lifetime to begin to see the other person. See the other person as entirely other and not just a projection of ourselves. The infant sees its parents as being a projection of itself. And the infant will weep and cry and scream when the parents do things that the child doesn't like because he is not able to separate himself from them. Well, we're all a bit like that. We all have to grow up. We all have to realize that paradoxically, in order to get to know someone, you have to separate from them. You have to be apart from them. You have to give them their own autonomy. And Johnson says, it is precisely in the many years of stirring the oatmeal that such a process can take place. But if falling in love may lead on to this genuine investment in loving other people, that's not its only benefit. As it disappoints us, lost love also points the way to let's call it a higher way of living, in which the fervor and rapture so easily experienced in that initial infatuation is channeled in the direction it really needs to go in, which is toward the infinite. Have you ever heard the story of, Sufi story of Majnu and Layla? Well, it's why Eric Clapton called his Derek and the Dominoes anthem Layla. There was once this is a picture of desert tribal culture. Majnu was the son of one tribe of nomadic Arabs, and Layla was the daughter of another. And upon seeing each other, they fell instantly, hopelessly in love. Layla's father felt this affair was inappropriate. Desert politics and tribal societies being what they are, and took Layla away. Majnu spent the remainder of his life searching for her. After many years, when he's old and sick, he catches a glimpse of her in a crowded marketplace. And he begins his pursuit. He turns people around, looks into their faces, and he begins to realize that everyone he sees is wearing the face of Layla. That what he was looking for in this woman he loved so much was really the mask of God, who was his true beloved, and that he had never really been separated from him at all. And that story is about union with the great source of all through the struggle of love and search, and of love and infatuation and of passion and energy being the motor of that. It means that the fervor of falling in love is available to us in other ways, but especially in that one way, the search for God. It's as if the taste of meaning that falling in love brings with it is a kind of initiation into loving itself. The immature, self-centered state of infatuation, of crushes, of fixations, has got depths which can be sought by people who have the courage and the heart to pursue it to its source, where it comes from, what it means. Love's apparent disappointment leads on to a blessing, which only a few have the perseverance to find. Well, let's say we're not among the lucky marginus of this world. If that's so, we find that the magic has long ago left us, and all we got left is the pot of oatmeal, we should be encouraged. The desert of the soul is not just trodden with sandals and camels, after all, but with every commonplace event of ordinary life. The goal of union with the infinite may sound a bit far-fetched and even overblown, or perhaps, in my case, just too tiring to contemplate. But you know what? We have each other. We have these problems. Each one of us is an individual soap opera that would eclipse EastEnders. We all have oatmeal to stir, and we're all stirring it away. And meanwhile, we've got good memories and fond fellowship to keep us interested. So I'd say this. I don't know if you're in love now. Is anybody actually in love now at the moment? Yes. Isn't it great? Can't you feel how it lifts you, how it wants to take you someplace else? Well, keep on with that. And for the rest of us who are feeling a bit flat right now, stir the oatmeal. It's just a fact. Love doesn't just give us a clear shot at the infinite. Love is its own reward. You could write a song like that, couldn't you? Amen. Yeah. Let's collect some money. What do you say? If you have money, we welcome it. If you don't, we're not worried. First, the good news. I'm off next week. And you'll have Jim Corrigal. Be good to him. Come in your droves and your millions and make him feel welcome. He'll be here in the same old place. And I am only slightly sorry that I can't hear him. We preachers never get to hear other preachers. But you'll hear him. I have no idea what he's got to say. Maybe somebody could record it for me. We won't have this set up. We won't be broadcasting it. Are you playing next week?
Yes.
Okay, well, he'll be in touch with you then. Great. That was the good news. And the bad news. Okay. Have I forgotten anything? I'm sure I have. Can we get some people to bring some flowers to this place sometime? Those are artificial flowers up there. They're not bad. They're sort of nice looking. I bring flowers every once in a while when I think of it, but they'd always be welcome. There's no such thing as too many flowers. So if you'd like to come in with a little bunch of flowers one week, that would be very welcome indeed. Shall we sing? Let's sing the Purple Book, that great tune we were just hearing, by the way, also known in other churches as What a Friend We Have in Jesus. We have When the Song of Life is Ringing, number 210, Purple Book. Now, whether we've been comforted or troubled, shaken or stirred, made lost or feel found, let us turn from this hour with minds more open, with hearts more tender, and hands more willing. Let us go out into a world transformed by our seeing and made more just and decent by our deeds. And for this, let us look after one another as we know we can until we meet again. Amen. Thank you.